We are in the midst of a 24-county tour of the district, launching our campaign, announcing it. So this is, again, I think our 12th county we've done in the past 3-4 days, is it? How long have we been doing this? Anyway, something like that. So we're driving throughout the district from county seat to county seat and meeting with supporters, talking to media, touring each of the county squares and having a real good time. Taking photos outside of each of the county courthouses has been fun as well. What's different now is we're starting early, really. That's the biggest difference. And we have experience that we didn't have last time. Last time was the very first campaign for a federal office that I'd ever undertaken. We started 7 months and a week before election day, which just wasn't enough time and didn't allow for generation enough resources to be as effective, as professional as we would like to be. This time we're starting 15 months and a couple weeks or something like that before election day. So I think that's going to be the key difference here. And yes, it is seem really too early, but that's kind of how this has to be in order to be effective. Yeah, we got a little over 46% of the vote. Again, despite a very short election cycle compared to Dave Loebsack's a little over 53%, if I remember my numbers correctly. I think it's going to make all the difference in the world. I'm very confident we're going to win this time. I think we've got a message that's talking about pragmatic solutions to address the American concerns, and I think that resonated a lot with people last time. We just didn't have, again, the time or the name ID or the resources to get that message out, and so far what we're hearing is people are very excited about this campaign, and I'm completely confident we're going to win in November 18. Yeah. So I think there are three, if I would say. One is approaching a surgical mindset to understanding a problem. It's not specifically surgeons, but it's kind of common sense, I think. And that involves, number one, before you can recommend policy solutions, you got to understand a problem. So in the surgical world, that would be a diagnosis. What's actually going on here? Then, second step is you define the goals. You understand what the problem is. What's the appropriate way to address that problem? Is it something in medicine that you can cure? Is it something you can just manage, for example, diabetes versus whatever? And then the third step, after you've done the first two, is to look at treatment options. In case of politics, that would be policy choices. So, what is the best policy option that's going to address the underlying problem and meet the goals you've set for yourself? I think in weighing the pros and cons of each. In medicine, that would be the risks of the surgery versus the benefit of the surgery, for example. Costs of the program versus the benefits of the program. For the most part in politics, it seems to me that people are, Republicans and Democrats, are focusing on policy choices without having understood. They're recommending surgery without diagnosing properly first. So I think that common sense, and I think it is common sense. Anybody who's run a business, a farm, understands that not all problems can be solved, but if you're going to solve it, you better understand it first. And so I think that basic set. Following in that, healthcare is a good example of that. So healthcare is a system which is a concern to everybody, whether you're a small business owner, a large business owner, someone who's getting insurance on your own, whether through an exchange or not. And the underlying problem there, as I see it, is the costs of services actually rendered. So ignore the coverage aspect, whether it's a private insurer or whoever. The costs of care, whether you see a doctor admitted to a hospital or get a prescription filled, are much higher than we see anywhere else in the world. The U.S. has the highest expenditures anywhere else in the world. Switzerland is the second most expensive, and they pay less than 70% what we do. They spend less than 70% what we do. And other developed countries may spend less than 60% or less than 50%. So these are addressing that cost is the thing that you need to address. That's what you need to kind of deal with before you can start talking about treatment options. And thus far, we've talked about just coverage. We've talked about, and this goes back to say way before this, but goes back to say Medicare Part D, prescription care for elderly people under the George W. Bush administration, the Affordable Care Act under the Obama administration. Both of these are trying to address coverage through various insurance things, but not dealing with the underlying costs. And if you look at a graph at healthcare spending in the U.S., it's just been doing this since about the mid to early 80s, we've far outpaced all other countries. So again, unless we address that problem, we're not going to address everything else. So that's a good example of how common sense or surgical decision making has led to, or the lack of that has led to poor options. So whether repeal or replace or keep the ACA, whatever, so far nobody's really talking about, in my opinion, meaningful reform. So that's another issue. The third issue I'd say is, why aren't they? I don't think the people in Congress are stupid or evil, but I think the system is dysfunctional. And so the system as it exists, people that are elected to office, representatives and senators, have a natural incentive to serve their interest groups, to get money from political action committees, to accept money from lobbyists in exchange for political favors, etc. So one of the highlights of my campaign is going to be pointing people to something called the American Anti-Corruption Act. The American Anti-Corruption Act, you can find easily at a Google search, and it lists 12, it's the most detailed group of proposals I've seen. It lists, I believe it's 12 specific proposals that they think is needed to remove the corruption, the dysfunction in DC. These include things from, again, exchanging political favors for lobbyist money, ending the revolving door between agencies and the industries they regulate, a whole series of them. I'm not sure that I agree with all 12 of the proposals, but I think it would be a great place to start. I think we have good, smart people in DC, but the system is set up that it doesn't allow them to focus on America's interests. Instead, they focus on the interests of people that probably don't need their help as much. So that's a big part of where I'm running, is trying to address that political dysfunction. We're going to win. I'm very confident we're going to win. So it's just a matter of building the campaign we want to do, energizing the grassroots, doing the things from the bottom up that need to be done to win a campaign, but I'm very confident. So, and it's going to be fun. We're going to have a good time. We're going to talk about important issues. We're going to talk about them in a way that people aren't normally expecting to hear from politicians talking about it. I will never view myself as a politician. I'm a surgeon. I'm a guy who tries to solve problems and help people. Our website is drpetersforiowa.com. That's probably the easiest way there. So donations can be done there. You can reach out. There's a contact thing there. An email actually comes to all the staff here, including me, so we see that. We have a Facebook page as well. What is that one? Dr. Peters for Iowa Facebook or something like that. There's a Facebook page as well, so you can reach out to Dr. Christopher Peters Facebook page. So yeah, those are all good choices.